Today, the Ohio State Supreme Court ruled on that state's newly drawn congressional districts. The ruling included the phrase, "stacks the deck." Ohio's justices threw out the state's new congressional map. The ruling accuses state Republicans of gerrymandering district lines, giving themselves a built-in advantage. Now, lawmakers have 30 days to craft an acceptable map. Ohio is hardly the only state fighting over redistricting right now. Tennessee, New York, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Maryland, Nevada, just a few states working to get their districts drawn and approved. Now, there's a reason we don't talk about redistricting much. It happens as often as the census, based on the results from that national count, every 10 years. Congressional and legislative districts get redrawn to reflect demographic changes, which brings us back to gerrymandering. According to 538.com, 26 states have approved new congressional districts so far. At least 9 of them, including Ohio, were hit with lawsuits claiming that the maps were gerrymandered. But different states draw their maps in different ways, under different laws. And the U.S. Supreme Court has only really ruled strongly on racial gerrymandering, not partisan gerrymandering. So what will all of this mean for you when you cast your next ballot? Let's continue now with NBC senior reporter Jane Timm. And Jane, if we could just start with Ohio, what's next for them and the redistricting efforts there?
Well, they're going to have to redraw their map. I mean, this is a state that sidestepped their commission, this bipartisan redistricting commission that was set up to try and reform this. And through the maps they wanted to draw, drew 12 free advantage maps for Republicans. They're going to have to redraw it. And the court's been pretty clear. They want to see maps that fully comply with the constitutional amendment in Ohio's constitution for the first time in this redistricting cycle. And they want to see maps that aren't dictated by partisan concerns. So those Republicans are going to have to go back to the drawing board and find something the state Supreme Court's going to tolerate.
We mentioned that this ruling came from Ohio State Supreme Court. North Carolina State Supreme Court is considering another case regarding those legislative maps. Why is this all happening so much in state courts and not in the U.S. Supreme Court? Wouldn't it just be easier if the 9 justices in Washington sort of settled the question as to how to determine whether partisan gerrymandering has gone too far?
I mean, I think advocates really hoped they would see that. But the U.S. Supreme Court in 2019 really kind of greenlit partisan gerrymandering and said this is not our authority to decide how much is too much. It said Congress can do it, but as we've seen, national Democrats really having a hard time getting that through the finish line. And so state courts are really the only cop on the gerrymandering beat, the only people who are stepping in to say, you know what, that's too much partisan gerrymandering. And it's also why you see voters trying to push through reforms like we saw in Ohio, saying, you know what, like, I really want elections that are not rigged at the start. I want to see an election that can be decided in competitive seats with competitive elections versus in these state houses and courtrooms where the redistricting can largely decide the outcome of a race before the candidates have even put their names in the hat.
Competitive elections, what a concept. Now, let's be clear. We've talked about Republican legislatures being accused of gerrymandering, but this is not something that is only affecting the GOP. I mean, there was a report from Cook Political Report, their 2022 House overview, that referred to how Democrats have, in the words of the report, unabashedly gerrymandered Illinois, New Mexico, and Oregon. They scored highly favorable maps from commissions in California and New Jersey, and to a lesser extent, Michigan. Jane Timm, it feels like no matter what states say they're going to do or what they set up, this is going to happen. Like, I remember living in California before I moved back east, and they talked big talk about how they were going to do redistricting right and put it in the hands of a commission, and, oh, we're going to have all these better... It seems like no matter what states set up, this is going to happen anyway.
I mean, gerrymandering is almost as old as American democracy itself. It's going to happen in many ways. But this is the question that voters keep trying to answer, which is why you see new citizen commissions in Michigan with really strict rules on how they can draw the maps. You see voters trying different things. What happened in Ohio was voters who tried to fix their system. And maybe it didn't work in the state process where you see Republicans passing a map that they wanted. But the courts are stepping in because there's new laws on the books that now have to be decided. I think it does feel a little fatalistic sometimes when you keep seeing this happen again and again, but I think voters across the country are trying to find new solutions.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.